Good evening and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. Tonight, as usual, we are soliciting questions and comments from you via Twitter at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. My name is John Ruark. I'm your host, and I am a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. I'll hand it off to Robert Johnson.
Hey guys, Brother Robert Johnson here from Waukegan Lodge number 70, where I'm the current master and the host of Wentz County Podcast.
Alrighty. Juan Sepulveda.
Good evening, brothers. Juan Sepulveda from Orange Blossom Lodge, number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, and host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry Podcast.
Alrighty. Nick Johnson just joined us.
Hey, how's it going? Nick Johnson, past master, Corinthian Lodge, number 67 in Big Time, Farmington, Minnesota.
And last but not least, Jason Richards.
Hey everyone, Jason Richards, Junior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, and Tyler of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia.
Awesome. All right. So let's see. Switching over to Masonic news, we got some late-breaking Masonic news. If you're watching this live, boy, do you have a treat, because Juan happened to catch this interesting news about what we talked about in a previous episode. Back in December, there was going to be an investigation of the time capsule found at the Boston State House. And so Juan happened to find a little bit of information on that. You want to talk about that while I bring it up?
Yes. As we mentioned in the previous conversation we had about it, there was some water damage in the state building, so that's what forced them to do something about the time capsule. They were trying to make sure that they protected the contents of that box, so upon the removal, it went straight to the Boston's Museum of Fine Art, where it was going to be examined through X-ray first and eventually opened. And today we are lucky to see the actual contents. And to put it in perspective, this is where I geek out. This is a time capsule that was closed by this brother in the year 1795. So for at least 2 and a little bit more centuries, the contents of this box haven't been in the presence of anybody. And now we get a chance to see what's in it.
And it's the oldest one in the United States, as far as we're aware. And I know, for brethren in Europe and other countries where they've been around for a lot longer than the U.S. has, 200 years isn't much, but it's a really big deal here. It's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, as far as the contents, we speculated on some of the contents. I think people had known through some writings what was in the contents. They did do Go ahead.
Actually, Scott Sherman told us back a couple episodes ago that the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts had an inventory of all of the contents, but the what was actually in it was only open to Masons.
Ah, well.
So for once in our lives, the Masons actually knew something that the public didn't beforehand.
For the first time ever.
The conspiracy theorists were right that one time.
So what were the contents? Well, they opened it up at 6 p.m. Eastern Time here on January the 6th, 2015. And the first thing they saw were a couple of newspapers. There were Saturday evening newspapers. Also some coins of different, like a quarter, a dime, a nickel of the time, including a coin with George Washington on it. But of Masonic significance was a picture of, an engraved silver plate, which I have shown up on the video here. And this was engraved presumably by Paul Revere. Now, it's kind of hard to read, but when I've zoomed into this article, you can actually read it if you know what the words say. And this silver plate, it's worth reading the following inscription. This is a purely Masonic silver plate, which says, "This cornerstone, intended for the use of the legislature and executive branches of government of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, was laid by His Excellency Sam Adams, Esquire, Governor of said Commonwealth, assisted by the Most Worshipful Paul Revere, Grand Master, and Right Worshipful William Scalay, Deputy Grand Master, the Grand Wardens and Brethren of the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts, on the 4th day of July, 1795, AL 5795, being the 20th anniversary of American independence."
Amazing.
That's so cool.
So this was a Masonic cornerstone laying with a Masonic silver plate made just for this occasion. So it's really kind of wild. What's also neat is I did find an article that I've already linked to the show notes on our the MasonicRoundtable.com, which actually has the words that were spoken by Paul Revere at the ceremony. So while we're seeing the tangible things, this is what was said as these things were being placed into its 200-year resting place. And it's very beautiful what he says. "Worshipful brethren, I congratulate you on this auspicious day, when the arts and sciences are establishing themselves in our happy country, a country distinguished from the rest of the world by being a government of laws, where liberty has found a safe and secure abode, and where her sons are determined to support and protect her. Brethren, we are called this day by our venerable and patriotic governor, His Excellency Sam Adams, to assist him in laying the cornerstone of a building to be erected for the use of the legislature and executive branches of government of this Commonwealth." And this is the best part I saw. May we, my brethren, so square our actions through life as to show the world of mankind that we mean to live within the compasses of good citizens, that we wish to stand upon a level with them, that when we part, we may be admitted into that temple where reigns silence and peace.
Mm.
I'm still memorizing that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it just sends chills down my spine.
How long do you think it'll be until one of the companies comes out with a replica plaque of that we can buy and sell? That'd be pretty sweet.
I'm on it.
Okay.
Somebody contact John Paul Gomez.
Or FreemasonryArt.com.
There we go. Yeah, Juan's artist rendition of it.
Yeah. I want the brothers that are watching and that are listening to this to take a moment and think. We now see this plaque and we hear these words that were spoken when it was put into that box, and it really sounds like history. It sounds like these men knew that what they were doing was gonna echo through history. Now, my challenge to all of you is the same. Even though we have this way of communicating and chatting back and forth and discussing Masonry, we are making history for the brothers that come after us. And if we take the care and put our hearts into making things of quality and making sure that we put our hearts into everything that we do for Masonry, who knows if 200 years from now, people are going to be looking back at what we did as a fraternity and see it as history and really see it as something meaningful to our history in our country.
Well, I think a necessary part of that history making is also the innovation that's necessary to keep the fraternity relevant, because we can't just keep stagnating. We have to maintain relevancy to keep the fraternity alive for generations and centuries to come. So that's one of the ways that we can make our own history as Masons today, is to innovate and say, how can we help the Masonic fraternity turn into the second decade of the 21st century.
Awesome. So any other thoughts on that? I mean, that was just amazing that there is a Masonic significant item there. The news has kind of been not so detailed about that. Basically said newspapers, coins, and a silver plate. They really didn't get into what was actually written on there.
Which is kind of weird, you know. I mean, it's like an engraved plate, right? I mean, like an engraved silver plate. Silver was an expensive item during that time, and you know, you'd think that they would be like, I wonder what the plate says. But you're right. I mean, I've been sitting on Twitter looking at everything. 1795 engraved plate with names of Paul Revere and Sam Adams. It's like, significance is, well, it was in there.
It was
It's like, nice, thanks guys.
It was kind of interesting that I've seen more talk about how it was hermetically sealed than, as far as the time capsule goes, than what was actually in the time capsule. They're like, look at what they did with this resin to make sure that nothing could get into it. Like,
Really?
well, yes, but you're kind of missing the entire point.
That is our news media today. It's amazing. All right.
And then this political official said this thing about the opposing party, and everybody's mad.
Yeah.
I know.
Good thing you're seeing real, true news here.
You heard it here first.
You got Russell Brand.
We've been referred to by certain Masons as members of the press.
That's scary.
I don't know if that's a moniker I readily embrace or not.
Okay, so let's move into our next topic. We can come back later if we need to. Nick, are you ready for the Masonic question?
Hold on, let me get it. Let me get it, because I know you guys are excited. I know, like, there's like tears of joy. I can hear it. It's like a beautiful rainstorm in the rainforest. It's these tears.
MMQOT, baby.
The Masonic Monday question on Tuesday.
On Tuesday. And so this one is a fairly interesting one.
Before you get into that, did you
Yes.
have any responses from some TMR listeners last week?
I did. So, if you wanted to know, I guess I should give the answer for the previous week's question. And so
That'd
the
be
question from last week was, in what year was the first verifiable mention of a St. John the Evangelist feast day celebration in the minutes of a lodge? And for which lodge did these minutes pertain? And we had 7 correct answers, of which one of our listeners, Kevin Schwartz of Paul Revere Lodge, number 205, under the Grand Lodge of Washington, answered, the first recorded St. John the Evangelist Day was in the lodge at Edinburgh in 1599. That lodge is also called St. Mary's Chapel Lodge. And so keep sending in your responses, but I will give this week's question, and I will post it. You know what? I'm going to post it on the Facebook group page just so that. But if you answer in that Facebook group page, I will hide those answers, and I will give you a quiet scolding in the way that I was taught in Minnesota, known as passive-aggressive or Minnesota nice. So,
bless your heart.
That is your warning. Bless your heart. So mote it be.
Your mic is scratching on your beard.
Oh, is it?
On your hands.
All right, hold on.
Scruffy
There
face.
we go. Yeah,
Beautiful.
I know. Well, I
Much
gotta
better.
shave. There we go. All right, sexy time.
So what's this week's question?
All right, so the Masonic Monday question for the week of January 4th, 2015 is, the term, the great architect of the universe, is likely to have entered Masonic parlance when it was included in this document. Your question, what was this document? Also a bonus question, where did the author of this document likely take the term from, and why? All right, if you wouldn't mind sending me your answer to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your name, lodge name, and number. And also, as a TMR listener, if you wouldn't mind putting in hashtag TMRMMQ in your response, either in the subject or in the body of the email. Again, the email address, masonicmonday@gmail.com. and I will post the question on the Facebook page. And remember, if you put it on there, I will be very saddened.
Thanks. I appreciate what you do, Nick, for the educational part of the Minnesota Grand Lodge and for the show. Awesome. Okay. Now, into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, which is New Year's resolutions. The last time we met was in 2014, and here we are in 2015, starting a brand new year. And as a philosophically oriented Mason, I like to consider the lessons and see how they apply. How can I improve myself, and how can I start as a good man and become a better man? And I think that ties in well with what we're trying to do with New Year's resolutions as well. So I thought we could take this time and discuss what are some of our New Year's resolutions, both personal and Masonic and everywhere in between, and why we like to do that around this time of year. So with that, I'll just kind of open it up and leave it broad. Any hot topics or items of interest that you want to improve on in this year?
I think really Jason should talk a little bit piece he did for the Midnight Freemasons, which really hit on a lot of levels. It was really good, Jason.
This guy writes too awesome.
Thanks.
Jason?
Two awesome pieces a year, basically, if you're lucky.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah, there you go.
Robert's just glad because he's the editor and he doesn't have to mark mine up.
I work hard to try to get people to write for me.
So yeah, I wrote a piece called Virtuous Resolutions, and I do something different with my my New Year's resolutions, and I do those in a way that's very personal to me that I explain in the piece. I actually reflect on those on Christmas Eve of each year. And when I was doing my introspection and self-reflection, I was trying to take a look at all the blessings that I've had over the past year and some of the challenges, and how I can apply the lessons learned from both. And as I was thinking of ways I can just improve myself and strive to improve myself over the next year, I realized they fell very much into the categories of four cardinal virtues to which we as Masons particularly ascribe or particularly revere. That's temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. Also, something we learn about in the entered apprentice degree. And so I took each of those virtues and I said, okay, this is something I resolved to do, with each of those virtues as a framework. And for temperance, temperance is all about balance, and that's something to me that's particularly important as a new Mason, because I'm still trying to work out my role in the fraternity and how I balance it with every other part of my life, because my life is not Masonry. My life is not Masonry. My life is not my family. My life is not my work. It's a combination of all of those, and it needs to be put into balance. So with temperance, I really resolved to spend the time with my family that they need, and to make sure that I'm giving them first and foremost the time they need, and I'm not spending too much time away from them doing Masonic things. With fortitude, it was really interesting because that dovetailed right off of the temperance, because fortitude is standing fast, giving something your all. And I realized that in the Masonic fraternity today, there's so much of an emphasis on quantity because there are a few Masons to do a whole lot of work. There are a myriad number of appendant bodies and other organizations that you can be a part of as soon as you get your Master Mason degree. And it's very important to really emphasize the quality, the qualitative aspect of your involvement. And I would much rather pick one or two things and do those the best that I can, instead of joining everything and anyone who gives me a petition, and do all things poorly.
Did I hear petition?
And then dovetailing off of Nick's comment, that leads us into prudence. And that was particularly poignant because I've noticed quite a bit that I can get very frustrated very easily, and I've had interactions with brethren who have really frustrated me, and I've you know thought some not nice things, and I've said some not nice things, not to the point of breaking any obligations, but for my own personal challenge for me is to just be good to everybody and exercise that prudence and that patience with those brethren who hold different views than I do, and that's something that's probably the biggest resolution that I'm going to work on this year is just trying to be good to everybody, which is hard for me, and then that leads to right into justice, the last cardinal virtue, which again is tied to the others, and that's just justice is righteousness prevailing. And as far as justice is concerned, I resolve to just be the best man that I can be all the time. And that's a tall order and it's a hard order. But those were the four resolutions that I put together in my piece. And those are the things I'm going to be working on this year. And I might fail in some, but the great thing about those resolutions is I see them more as guidelines as opposed to actual achievable ends. So it doesn't matter so much if I fail here or there. I can hop back on the wagon and keep trucking on.
Awesome.
Well said.
Yeah. You made me think of one thing. A lot of people think of resolutions, like you just mentioned, this specific goal that you want to reach. But if you use them as a guideline, like you said, and to keep it within the allegory of building an edifice, could you imagine if the workers only look at the plan one time and then they just went and started working on that building until its completion? It's just impossible. It's that going back and forth between, okay, what was it that I needed to do, and looking at the plans and then working. So it's going back to the plan and putting the labor. And I think resolutions are much more achievable or sustainable if that's the attitude that's employed. That you look at it not as a goal, a finish line, but it's just it's a touchstone that you go to every single time just to make sure you're in the right direction.
Funny enough, actually, I had an entire section of my paper that I ended up cutting because it just muddled everything down and buried the real meat of the paper. And that was all about resolutions as guidelines and the sanctification process of your life. Nice. And I likened it to rough ashlars and perfect ashlars. And I see a lot of resolutions as people looking at that perfect ashlar and saying, that is what I'm going to be within 365 days. Mm-hmm. And that's why resolutions carry such a negative connotation, and that's why they're broken, often just as soon as they're made. But if you take a look at that as, take a look at your resolution as a sanctification process, the process whereby your rough ashlar of your life is being chipped away and molded by the different working tools we have in Masonry in hopes of one day, not in this lifetime, becoming that perfect ashlar, then if you make a misstep in straightening out that ashlar or smoothing it out, you can go back and redo it. And I think if you look at it from that framework, it's just resolutions become a much more positive connotation that lines up with what exactly we're trying to do as Masons.
Right. You have that whole you have that whole idea of leaving the world a little bit better than you came into it. And so when I look at my New Year's resolutions, excuse me, I don't look at it like you said. People go in 300, in a year, I want to be this perfect ashlar. I look at it like, well, my New Year's resolution was literally to stop biting my nails. That was one of them. Like, I've been working on it for 23 years, and I finally did it.
Nice.
But it's like one of those things where it took 23 years to do it.
Did you use Tabasco sauce?
I didn't. You know what I did? I just stopped fighting them. It was just like finally a mind over matter thing, and one of those just weird things. But it took 23 years to do it. Little by little, every year you get a little bit better at something, and I think eventually you get to a point where you might, you know, get some sort of a positive result. You're never gonna look at it like these flat sides. It's like, hey, you see that one little lump on a rough ashlar over there? My goal this year is to chip off that little piece, just a little. And if I can do that, that's that's a win.
Interestingly enough, the Russians back in the 1800s had a phrase for living out your life as a Mason, and they called it working the rough stone. And that was how they viewed their entire lives as Freemasons, just a constant sanctification process.
Working the rough down. So now, all right, I got something later.
That's cool. All right, Juan, how about you?
I haven't committed resolutions to paper. I have been trying to avoid doing the first of the year is the beginning of the resolution. Somebody posted or shared something with me recently. He said, New Year's resolutions are for losers. If something is important enough for you to change it, you change it as soon as you find out. You don't wait to the beginning of the year, or you don't wait till Monday in order to start changing it. I thought, wow, that was harsh, but it makes you think. It's like if you notice something that is, crooked in your life, you don't have to wait. You just take little steps in order to change it. So with that, one of the main things that I've been wanting to do is to organize my business and my environment a little bit better. And I have been doing that for the past few months. And the other one is to have very specific goals, very attainable goals in business, in my Masonic life, in my personal life. So instead of having a very overarching resolution, I want to focus on these specific things that I can actually achieve. So I want to put steps in order to get to those goals and not make it a very ambitious and murky idea far away in the distance.
Well, that's the thing about the idea of, well, if you've got something wrong, just fix it and just change it. If you charge headlong into changing a part of your life without a plan, what good is it going to be? You're going to be unsuccessful. Ultimately, I think that's one way to frame a New Year's resolution. It's not for losers. It can be in some ways, but it could also be for planners. And if you take that time over the holidays to come up with a concrete plan of how you're going to do things, and not everybody does that, then I think it can be a very positive thing.
Yeah, but the point was, don't wait till the 31st of December or to December to make the decisions. You can continue to make resolutions every month, and I think the real practical thing of this is as you go, you don't try to make these changes that are so overwhelming that are unsustainable. It's like if I were to pick up P90X today, and start doing P90X, it would be more like P22 P22W.
Yeah.
Because I know, it's a huge leap. However, if I instead make the decision that I want to, do at least 50 push-ups every day, that's not such an exaggerated goal, and it's more realistic that I'll stick to it and do it.
Don't you want to do CrossFit? I mean, they meet in boxes. They got the kettlebells. You're ready to go, man.
I gotta say, I saw the funniest joke about CrossFit on this on Twitter, which basically said, at first I thought CrossFit was a dessert because I saw so many fat people talking about it all the time.
Wow.
But
Wow.
I mean, well, it goes back to the whole point of, if you like something, stick to it. That don't it's like a fad. It was a fad at the time instead of just being an actual self-improvement.
You guys can't see my CrossFit trophies, can you? I don't want you to look.
So yeah, Nick, how about you?
Yeah. So how bad's my mic? Is it pretty bad?
It's better if you move it up. It's good.
All right, let's try it out here. All right, well, for me, I don't have a lot of. I like to do concrete stuff, really concrete. So, and I like to have like enumerated lists because that's just how I live. It's like one of those that if I'm having to imagine it, I'm gonna screw it up because that's what I do. But for me, I have two. Yeah, exactly, just like that. Man, nice. That's a beautiful list. But for me, it's one of those that I'm kind of being stupid right now, in that I'm the illustrious master of Northfield Council, and should all things happen the way they happen, April I'll be the commander of Faribault Commandery, and so I'll be in the East in two different bodies.
Oh my God.
And I've never done that before. And that's pretty stupid. So I'm having to imagine, how do I plan this year out? And so it's one of those that I've made myself a resolution that I need to focus on what each body does well, get everybody on board with each idea, and then just go with it. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right now is, what do I do? Like, what does this body do? What does that body do? And just having to go with it because, it's one of those, it's just nuts because, I don't know, I thought it was crazy, but it's all good. It's all good, and that's how Masonry works, You get thrown into the seat that we're ready for because that's what we do. It's an awesome thing. But trying to think of, and I have all these different, goals and plans for each body, and you almost think of them as your children, And so I just have to sit down with my dudes and figure out what we're gonna do.
Take care of your children.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what other things. Well, and then another concrete goal because I decided I got to do this. I have to write weekly on my blog. I got to do it. I got to do it for you guys, for everybody in the world. And guess what? I have a blog post coming next week.
Nice.
On Monday. I know.
Did you post one this week?
No. But this is I just started CrossFit.
He was saving it for this show, so that way he could.
I threw up a little bit with all the kettlebell stuff I was doing, and so I just didn't have it in me. But this month, week, not month, I'm gonna get this done. So, but it's Jason. I really like what your blog post said about that. It was really it really helped me think about how resolutions have to be kept by compartmentalizing and then understanding what their purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right, so I'll go next. I think I'm surprised that we haven't talked about this yet. I alluded to the whole exercise thing. I know that is one of my resolutions is to really get off my butt. I've been a past master, so obviously I gained at least 15 pounds during that year, and so I'm actually going to do it. I'm actually making a plan, and I'll tell you later how I'm sticking to that, and some scientifically proven ways that you can stick to even something like exercise. And so I'm getting up every morning. I'm starting with a 7-minute workout and getting that as hard as I can, high intensity, and moving that along. I even thought about wouldn't it be cool if we had some sort of thing going on the page to kind of keep each other motivated, but I don't have the time for that. So, but I will say, that I'm sticking to it so far, pretty good, and the process of which I've done it works, and you'll hear more about that. So I kind of put that in my category of strength. I also have another category of a New Year's resolution, which is wisdom. You can see where I'm going with this. That
Shouldn't you have started with wisdom?
I'm mixing it up a bit, but I think really, the one I really need to work on is kind of losing a few pounds. So
The beauty.
Is it no? That's strength, bro.
it's my strength. Yeah, I'm already beautiful.
Core
I just need to
strength.
work on the strength. So the wisdom part though is reading more. I've got a couple projects that I have in my backlog of Masonic papers I want to write, and I just want to focus more on that so I can both internalize and give back into some lodge presentations of some Masonic items that have kind of hit me. And so that's in my learning phase, my wisdom category. And then last but not least is beauty. And the way I internalize that is in my life, I am rushed for a lot of things. My time is very hard to manage. So what I need to do in order to less run through things, I need to spend more time and focus. And I put that in the beauty category by doing deliberate planning, by not rushing through things, making sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. That will help ensure good quality of whatever I do. So get away from the rushing. And one tool I use for that is a time map. It's something Ben Franklin used, actually. Brother Ben Franklin, what he did was he laid out all the hours of the day, the 24 hours, and segmented and showed what he was going to do and fill up every hour of the day. I was inspired by Robert, who said he had done something like that as well. He can account for every hour of the day.
Every hour of the day has something attributed. 24 hours. I mean, I even schedule my kids in there. I mean,
Yep.
this is how specific.
And so it works. It does work. I've done that as well. And guess what I scheduled in there? That exercise as well. So if you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. And that's even fun time. If you don't schedule fun time, it's not going to happen.
This is fun time.
You see that's a very important point about having the 24 hours be the only 24 hours you're accounting for. You only have one life, and yes, you have different aspects of your life that happen within those 24 lives, but it's still your own 24 hours. So if you might see some professionals that work out of the house. I don't know what that is, but if you work out of the home and you have a business email and you have a business calendar and it's all organized, everything happens, all the meetings happen when they need to happen, and then they go home and it's just like a free-for-all. That same discipline that you keep in work, if you're able to expand it to encompass your family and your personal time, then it's just one bird's eye view of everything that happens in your life. You can manage things better that way instead of having a blind spot to your time.
So one of the things that, like hearing you guys kind of talk about, what thing to me was, it kind of made me realize a little bit, Nick, when you were talking about all the things that you have going on, it made me think about kind of a joke that we've had a long time, that the real secret is saying no. And so for me, that's something I want to work on this year, is saying no, not to be a jerk, but just because I have, like, we all have these family obligations, and sometimes I feel like there have been times where my wife we're out to dinner and I am on my phone answering emails or whatever from anybody, and she's like, "Hey, can you be here right now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, really sorry." And I joke, I'm gonna nerd out for a second here. If you guys have ever watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, in one of the seasons, there's an episode where Data is starting to date one of the crew members, and he goes in and he's kissing her, and she says, "Stop! You're not here right now. Where are you? What are you doing? What are you thinking about?" And he's like, "Well, I was thinking about how much pressure to apply to your face to not explode your skull. I was trying to think about all these problems we're having on the ship and doing." So he's not there at all. And that's kind of how I feel sometimes, that I'm thinking about masonry like 24 hours a day. And I'm always doing something for the fraternity, and I need to learn how to kind of step back and focus on what I'm doing a little bit more. And And then I was, listening to John when you were talking about, kind of making time for all these things and scheduling. My mother-in-law used to work at a ladies' workout facility called Curves, and she was telling me that when you're there, you do these stations. It's like 8 minutes here, 8 minutes here, 8 minutes here, 8 minutes here, and I find myself doing that at home. I'll work out for 10 minutes. I hop off the bike or hop off like the treadmill or whatever, and I go over and I'll play music for 10 minutes. Just practice scales and stuff. And then I'll hop off that and I'll go read a book for like a half hour. And I find myself like subconsciously doing this stuff. It's just kind of silly, I think. But yeah, I went off on a tangent. Sorry.
No, it's really good. So I think, in summary, we've got some really good goals. I think some of them are kind of the typical ones, and the lose weight and be a better person and all that good stuff. And then there's some specific ones as well about growing your business and all that. So I think I got out of this what I hope we would, is to really think about how we're trying to become a better person by often applying some of the things we learn in Masonry, but also just by trying to improve ourselves every day. I think one thing that I wanted to highlight that I alluded to earlier was, so what makes someone's resolution stick and someone else's not stick? And I think a book that I read the tail end of last year that's been really beneficial is called The Power of Habit: Why We Do What We Do in Life and Business. And I'm going to sum it up for you very quickly. The whole point is you can't.
You can't.
He turned it into a mystery. It's a cliffhanger. Next time on the Masonic Roundtable, we'll reveal the cliff notes of the.
Yeah. And we lost
Hey, John. John, we lost you, buddy. So I'm going to start talking unless you cut out. Oh yeah, he lost his mic. So, once John gets back, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But wrapping things up, how to make resolutions stick. We've already talked about the idea of looking at it from the process of sanctification and realizing it's not a sprint to the finish line. It's a marathon, and it's more the journey than it is the finish line or the destination. What do you guys think? Do you have anything else to add on little tips and tricks we can do to make resolutions stick?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yay! Sorry about that. Okay.
Never mind.
Technical
All
issue.
of you.
But hold that thought. So yeah, I just want to show this book real quick, that you can't break habits, but you can change them. So what you need to do is you need to create a habit. How do you create a habit? You're going to have triggers, right? So basically, what is a trigger? If you say, well, I'm going to lose weight, right? Well, one, you don't say how much, you don't say by when. It's just a goal that's too unattainable, like we've mentioned, like Juan mentioned earlier. Instead, what you need to do is break it down, but more importantly, associate it with something that happens in your life. Like say, after and this is what I did, and it's working so far. I'm a week into it, so yay, 1 week, which is when I let the dog out in the morning, I exercise, right? So it's one of these things you can't say, oh, I'll put it off later, or today's a bad day. No, you do it. You have an instinctive trigger that says, when this event happens, I'm going to do this. And so by tying it to something, makes it harder to ignore, makes it harder to blow off, right? So step one, I had to make the time in my time map, but step two was make something that was immediately preceding it. So when that thing happened, it kind of clicked in my head. Okay, now I need to go do this. And so it's not this big goal. It's just part of a routine now. And what I'm doing is I'm building a habit. So just like in the morning when you go brush your teeth, you don't think about how much toothpaste you're putting on. Your eyes are half open. It's a habit. That's what you need to do. But make it small, but make it a habit. Jason, how are we doing on social media?
On social media, well, we had a fantastic thread up to New Year's asking people, about their New Year's resolutions, and I'm not going to go through all that. I'd invite all the brethren who are watching or listening to go check that out, because there's some really good ideas from a lot of brethren. Getting back to the time capsule we talked about in Masonic News, we had some comments from our brother Ismail Rosa, saying that it really is in all this. It's a cool thing, but it's really baffling that the media didn't point out any of the Masonic significations or aspects of that time capsule. I mean, it's clearly, there's a lot of Masonic language in there. Anyone, would have known the significance behind that time capsule because, the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts kept a record. So
that's a good point. So hopefully, once they examine the contents and do all their press releases, they just opened it hours ago. So maybe after the dust settles, literally, then they'll have some time to examine it, and maybe the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts will come out with some big, hey, that was us, big party.
So after they're done talking about the hermetic seal, see, hermeticism, it's right there in the opening. Come on.
Secrets.
So, interestingly enough, we got a couple other comments on the Facebook page. One from our buddy Pete, who says, he doesn't make resolutions because he's terrible at keeping them, but he's going along with the guideline approach, trying to be a better husband, trying to get into better physical condition, and take a more active role in the lodge. And these are all things that I think are easily achievable if you have a game plan. Mm-hmm. And I just there we go. And I have to share a great post by Joseph Schultz, who was the winner of our Sparklight contest, with whom we will be having lunch in a couple weeks because he only lives an hour or two away from me and John. But he says, I know how to approach things these year, and there's the two statues. It's the thinker and the doer, and you can always you can see where that ends up.
Yeah, that goes back to Juan's comment. If you need to change right now.
Mm-hmm.
But have a plan.
Yeah. And you know what? There's an allegory that I think a lot about when it comes to planning and actually doing. There has to be a balance between the planning and the doing. If you were to go on a road trip, and I think I talked about this on episode 1 of the Winding Stairs podcast, if you're driving to a destination, okay, let's say you're mapping your route. If you spend the whole time looking at the map, you're gonna crash. If you spend the whole time just driving, then the route that you traced to get to that place doesn't mean anything. You might get lost, or you might spend more time than necessary reaching your destination. And if all the time you're spending is just planning alternate routes and scenic routes, but you never get in the car and actually go, then you're not going to get anywhere. So striking that balance of actually planning and then making a decision when it's when the plan is good enough for you to get going. Don't wait for all the circumstances to be perfect. Start now.
Yeah,
Temperance, baby. Temperance.
Well, that's actually a very Kabbalistic balance as well. And don't ask me to define what the Sephiros are, but there is one that's planning and there's one that's execution, and so you need to balance between them. Mm-hmm. Juan, anything else? Let's start wrapping up with you, since you so eloquently tied that together. Anything else you wanted to add as your final thought?
I did wanted to thank everybody for participating as always. It really makes a difference whenever you actually engage and share your thoughts. Thank you to the brothers that have been participating in the social media. And this is a topic that it's evergreen. This is something that we'll always struggle with. We'll always have difficulties. We'll always be setting goals, breaking our commitments, and picking them back up again. Don't be too hard on yourself about it. Be strict with yourself as much as you can so that you can keep yourself going in the right direction. One last tip that I wanted to share with the brothers that are considering establishing some resolutions in their life: don't keep it to yourself. It's put in there an element of accountability. Share with a few of your brothers or share it with us. Let us know what's your resolution. What is it that you want to change this year so that you can move in the right direction to becoming a better man and a better Mason. And we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to, your friends and your brothers are going to try to stay in touch with you and ask you, oh, how are you doing with that new, 7-minute workout? Is it working for you? Good, I see some difference. And it's a balance of all that, of the encouragement and the accountability that helps you stick to the resolutions. You can find me at thewindingstairs.com. For the brothers that have joined the discussion group on Facebook, do a little search for the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group. We're having some really interesting conversations there. We're keeping it as a fertile ground for discussions and for brotherly love. We might not always agree in the things that we post there, but we do it with respect, and we encourage the discourse. So for all the brothers that have joined it, thank you. We're almost at 700. That should be happening very soon. So it's growing really fast. We discuss all things Masonic in it. So join the conversation.
And it's a really cool group because, like Juan said, everybody is respectful,
Yeah.
and it's just amazing. The conversations we've had where we've gotten into some very emotional topics that people are very passionate about, and it's really great to see people engaging in rhetoric and discourse. Being passionate, but making sure that they're subduing their passions so they don't end up attacking people or using one of our fantastic logical fallacies. And I think part of the reason why everybody is respectful, because we will not hesitate to put down the banhammer on anybody. It's like
Anything else, Juan?
So that's it. Oh, and very last thing, the way that we keep the lights on at the Winding Stairs, producing new episodes, is for you to go to freemasonryart.com, and the collection of art that I have there helps keep the show going. So freemasonryart.com, and thank you again.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Oh man. All right, final thoughts. It's one of those that you can have all these plans and excitement over resolutions and things like that. Sorry, I'm breathing heavily because resolutions is a heavy topic, because although I said all that stuff about having a plan and stuff like that, I'm terrible at it. I'm terrible at making plans. I shoot from the hip, and I know this, and I need to break that habit. So, I was thinking about it. Something that somebody told me, I don't know, a week ago that really stuck with me is this idea of highs and lows. Thinking of every single week or every single day even about the high point of your day and the low point of your day. And the reason you do that is, you're constantly looking at self-reflection, right? And so that's the second half of everything that we do when we come up with resolutions. So the first half is coming up with the plan, and then the second half is coming up with the idea of what do we do with that plan? How are we going about with that plan? And so, I just would leave everybody with this idea of every single day, sit down and ask yourself, what was the high point of my day? What was the low point of my day? And am I achieving those goals within that? So you can find me at millennialfreemason.com. It's a beautiful website that is going to get content, which is so amazing, it's not even funny. And actually, I do have a pretty good blog post, if I don't say so myself. It's not as beautifully written or erudite, I believe is the word, as what Jason writes. And that's okay. Yeah, erudite is some kind of like mountain range in Israel, or maybe Florida. I don't know,
It's a
but it's
mineral.
something. It's a mineral, And so you can go and find me there, reddit.com/r/freemasonry. Also, I'm still taking pledges for the Polar Plunge, where right now it is 2 degrees in Minnesota. We've been sitting at -15 for the last couple days, so it's been really weird. As the one meme says, I live in a place where the wind makes my face hurt. Why do I live in a place where my face hurts? Ask that question of myself right now and every day. You can also find, don't forget, the Masonic Monday question on Tuesday, and I will put it in the on the page. Don't answer. Remember, that's our rule.
Don't
That's
answer on the page.
that's our deal. Exactly. And if you do, I will be sad. And nobody likes Nick sad. Nobody. So, with that, thanks, John.
Awesome. All right, Robert, how about you?
Just as a final thought, you kind of alluded to, which was if you fall off the wagon, it's okay. If you've never been on the wagon before, you can fall off a few times. Everybody does it. To just say something else about Juan's group, the Winding Stairs Freemasonry group, which is really great. He said that a lot of people bare their souls on that site. I myself have, I've said some things on that group that I don't necessarily share with everybody because they're very personal. But I know that group is so respectful that I can share things there. And I got like the best responses, and people just made me feel 100% better about certain things. It was just a really good experience. So if you guys are tired of other groups that doesn't happen, it's a good place to go. And he said that they're quick to drop the ban hammer. Well, obviously, how many times are they doing that with so many members? So it just goes to show you that good guys are on that site and they're around. So check that out. You can find me at wcypodcast.com. Whence Came You is the podcast, and we go out every Sunday at 9:30.
You got a new one this Sunday coming up?
Yeah, it's our first time back, and we're going to have some new segments, and those segments are later going to be turned into their own shows.
Ooh.
We got probably 3 new shows that I'll be producing. They'll all be Masonic. I won't be the host of them. But we're working with some good brothers to have some good stuff come out there, and that'll be probably looking at March or April before we have episodes of those shows. But until that point, we're going to be running segments. For instance, an esoteric minute or a Masonic history minute. These kind of things will be coming along. So look forward to those.
Very cool. All right, Jason, final thoughts.
Well, first, before I do the final thoughts, I just want to share something that that my wife got me for Christmas. Going back to FreemasonryArt.com. This is one of Juan's latest prints called The Pursuit of Perfection, and it's all about that sanctification process where this completed perfect part of the square and compasses all drawn in is what we hope to achieve. But for this life at least, we're in this rough state where we're still filling everything in. And I just I saw this print and immediately fell absolutely in love with it, to the point where I basically said, I will get that for Christmas. If I don't get it for Christmas, I will buy it.
It will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine.
It will be mine. So that dovetails in again to resolutions, and just remember that if you have things in your life that you want to change, realize that make a plan. Realize that you can lean on others to help you change that. You do not have to work through this alone. This is why we are a brotherhood of men with the goal of making good men better. It is a group effort. So get some accountability partners. Talk to your lodge brethren. If you fall off the wagon, not a big deal. Just make sure you get back on. And if you focus your resolutions more as guidelines rather than end goals, I think you'll find them to be much more positive, much more successful, and much more satisfying. So with that, I'm Jason Richards. I've got a blog. I've got some new stuff coming out soon. It'll be really good, talking about internal and external qualifications. So it'll be really good. It's in work. It's dropping soon. Thank you so much, everybody, for hanging in there with us over the holidays and watching our show, listening to our show. Please keep interacting with us. Please keep engaged with us, because we absolutely love that that interaction and that engagement. That's why we do a social media portion of every show, because we want to interact with you all and get your thoughts out there on the show. Despite the fact that we just can't have everybody on this show at one time. So with that, thanks so much, guys. Please keep sending us topic ideas, and I'll see you next week.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I got to echo that. You guys are really great, and so we do learn and value everything that you guys contribute, because you have such a breadth of information. One thing I wanted to add is that, you know, our resolutions are now recorded for all time, right? So when we say make it exposure, you know, put it out there, make sure that someone else knows your resolution, so you have some sort of accountability. Ours are there, so hopefully next year we'll go back and see how well we did. One thing that would help, I think, a very microcosm view of a lot of sticking to habits. One thing I really got out of the Winding Stairs podcast was on episode 23, the Unfinished Books podcast. Juan really does a good job breaking down how to take large, you know, seemingly unattainable goals of, in that case, all these unfinished books I have yet to read, but think about that as your resolution. How can you apply a couple simple steps that he outlines how to break the work down, prioritize, and execute. So go back and listen to that. See how that can apply to what your goal is. Just one other clarification. I don't hate CrossFit. CrossFit's great. But, you know, it's just, I too myself want to get out, get moving. It's been cold around here, not as cold as Nick's place, but, you know, I got to get off the sofa myself. Let's all go through this together, however you exercise. I love you, Ismail. And finally, I think I'm going to summarize what Juan said as a kind of concluding thought here, that this year in 2015, make history. Do something that will be a mark on where you are and in this time. So make history, and how do you do that? Build your temple according to your plans. So with that, thanks for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.
See you in the box.